It's that time of year again, so here are my top 10 4K Blu-rays for 2024 so far. I'm not going to go in any particular order, we're just going to go in chronological order because all 10 of these are great. To compare one against another, it would sort of be doing apples versus oranges in terms of when the films were designed, when they were made, when they were shot. So we're going to start with Old Boy, which was released in January of 2024 from Neon. It came in this hardback, really limited edition case. Beautiful artwork, very simplistic, very minimalist, but beautiful. And the 4K transfer with Dolby Vision was brand new, working off of the recent remastered version of the film, and it was incredible. I've seen this movie on streaming a couple times. I had an old Blu-ray release, which I think was from the Tartan Asia Extreme label, I believe is what it was called. I had to import that. I had it on Blu-ray, but this 4K took it to the next level, and Neon did a great overall job with the package, all the extras, very boutique Blu-ray type stuff that they did. And while you are going to pay the price for that, it's a beautiful release. It looks great on the shelf, and the visuals are well worth the upgrade. Now, my second one on my list, which also came out in late January of 2024, is Little Darlings. And this was released by Vinegar Syndrome's new sub-label, Cinematograph. And I believe I said that right, Cinematograph. It's a French word. It's based on the Lumiere brothers' initial invention of basically like the movie camera. That's my film history in 10 seconds. But it's a new label run by Justin LaLiberty, who's friend of the channel, has been on the podcast. And Little Darlings, I think, was their best release of the year so far. The visuals on it were top notch. I mean, it was a really stunning transfer, especially for a movie that really hadn't received much attention when it came to physical media over the years. You can tell that a great restoration effort went into effect here. And of course, being one of the Vinegar Syndrome sub-labels, it's full of goodies, beautiful packaging, everything you'd expect for, granted a premium price point, but a great film that really surprised me and a really good 4K transfer. And of course, the Vinegar Syndrome quality you've come to expect from all their sub-labels. Next on my list, released in February of this year, is the Paprika 4K Steelbook from Sony Pictures. Now, this is an animated Japanese film from 2006, and it had a very early Blu-ray release. Obviously, it was released in 2006, so the Blu-ray came out super early in the days of Blu-ray. It looked great, but this 4K transfer takes it to the next level. And on top of everything, as great as the visuals look with Dolby Vision and HDR, the audio on this, the Dolby Atmos, is probably what put it on this list over some other films that could be on this list, because it's an overall beautiful AV presentation. The Steelbook looks great. And it's another movie that I had not seen before and really surprised me, because I don't know a ton about Japanese animation. Even, Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki films, I'm not massively into those, but Paprika was really, really good. And I love animated movies on 4K because of just how beautiful they are when you get that HDR color grade applied, if it's done well. And this one was done well. Sony has a couple on this list, but Paprika was top-notch stuff. Now, heading into March of 2024, we had the infamous now 3 James Cameron releases of The Abyss, True Lies, and Aliens. And while True Lies wouldn't make this list for a couple of its issues, although I still don't think it's bad, Aliens was a close honorable mention, but the best of the bunch was The Abyss, and that's the one I'm putting on my list. Again, this film was fully remastered, graded with Dolby Vision HDR. James Cameron took years and years and years working on this remaster, and of the 3, it's very close to Aliens. I would say True Lies is the one that was messed with the most, if you want to talk about that, but The Abyss is really good and does not have a lot of the issues that bothered some people with Aliens or True Lies. It has tiny bits of it, but really nothing unless you're actively trying to look for it that would distract you from any of this beautiful picture. And to add on to that, of course, you got to have that Dolby Atmos upgrade. This has it. It sounds awesome. It kicked ass. Watching this, I kind of wish I had seen this in theaters with its new restoration, because this 4K disc was so good. So off the charts, great. It's by far the best of the bunch of 3 that Cameron put out. Aliens is a close second. But if you're going to buy one of the 3 and you want a truly great 4K experience, The Abyss will be the one to pick. Next on my list, this might surprise you, but it's the Ring collection from Shout Factory, Scream Factory, which came out also in March. Now, I got several reasons why I picked this one. First of all, the first 2 Ring films, forget Rings, which honestly I didn't even buy the box set for, not a huge fan of, but The Ring and The Ring 2 I think are both great films. The Ring 2 is a really good sequel, and they were both beautifully remastered in 4K. They went back to the original camera negatives. Gore Verbinski went back. He worked on them. It was really, really well done. And then on top of that, although there wasn't a massive audio upgrade, the packaging, which had great artwork by friend of the channel, Mexifunk, Orlando Aracena, the packaging was awesome. It looks amazing on a shelf. And that's part of why, that plays into why you'd buy something, why you'd collect something versus, you could watch The Ring on 4K on different services. So I took that into account here. It's a beautiful box set. It has 2 amazing transfers, and even Rings, which is a 2K digital intermediate, has a very good 4K transfer. So taking all those things into account, I had to put this one on the list. I think it's Scream Factory's best release of the year so far, and that's why it's on my list. Now, if we jump ahead to May, The Crow from Paramount is the next one on my list, and I didn't ever do a full 4K review. In fact, I didn't do a full 4K review for most of these films because it's just been hard to keep up with how much 4K stuff's been coming out. But this is why I love these kind of compilation videos like this, because I get to talk about all of these films that I never got to do an individual video on. And The Crow is one that really deserves more attention, and I regret not having done a video on it because I do think it's one of the best examples of a 4K upgrade, particularly because this film is so dark. And that's often where I find a lot of benefit, especially with HDR. It's not just color, but it's brightness and contrast as well. Black levels, everything is improved with HDR, that dynamic range. And adding Dolby Vision to this film takes it to the next level. It's a great 30th anniversary release. It has a steelbook option as well, but seriously, one of the most stunning, beautiful 4K video transfers, and certainly one of the biggest upgrades that I saw from Blu-ray to 4K this year. If you're truly looking for something that head-to-head is going to blow you away and convince you to upgrade to this format, The Crow would have been that film. Now, staying in May, this one's pretty obvious, and I did do maybe my favorite 4K review of all time on this film because it took me about 90 seconds to do it, and that's Dune Part 2. I mean, of course it makes the list. It's a beautiful movie. It is maybe a bit long for some people, but Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, has all the AV specs. Denis Villeneuve is an absolute master of cinema and cinematography, and getting the shot and just making beautiful looking movies. And Dune Part 2 is simply that. I think I said in the review, this was my 90 seconds, but it looks awesome. It sounds awesome. It's an awesome movie. Like, literally, what else would you want from a 4K disc? Like, this is, if there's any on this list that I think has the most mass appeal and would be the most mainstream friendly and makes the most sense if you just want the best disc, it's going to be hard to top Dune Part 2 for a end of year 4K best of the year list because it's just that good. Next on my list is one from Arrow Video, also came out in May, and that's Narc on 4K. Now, this is a movie that I totally missed. I had never seen this movie. It was from 2002. It has Ray Liotta. It has a great cast. And it's this crime detective thriller. A lot of people compare it to The French Connection. But I think I don't know. I think it's honestly maybe better than The French Connection. Is that crazy to say? But I enjoyed this more, maybe just because it was a more modern take. But I think Narc might be one of the most seriously underrated crime thrillers out there, and Arrow Video knocks it out of the park with their 4K master. This one, like many others on this list, has all the goodies. Dolby Vision, HDR, looks incredible. Dolby Atmos audio, which adds a ton to the experience, so all the AV boxes are checked off. It's got beautiful Arrow Video limited edition packaging. Now, I assume a standard edition will be available as well in the future. That's typically what happens, but I think the biggest reason I put some of these on this list is how much they surprised me as films and how much the 4K format is giving them a bit of a resurgence. And this is just a movie that I knew nothing about before Arrow put out the 4K, and I'm so happy they did because it's such a beautiful movie. It's a great gritty crime thriller. It looks awesome on 4K, and I hope more people discover it. So that's how it made the list. It's a great overall package and a great transfer, but also just a great film. And speaking of movies that I was just totally unaware of but really surprised me, next up on the list is from June. It's La Femme Nikita, which is another 4K steelbook from Sony that I was shocked. I was shocked at how much I liked it, but I was also shocked at how great it looked, because it's a very stylistic movie. It's very stylistically, shot and put together. There's a lot of use of color in this, and not having seen it before, the best I can do is go back and look at, Blu-ray screen caps, but I can't imagine that it ever looked this good. Now, this one does not have Dolby Atmos audio, but it does have that Dolby Vision HDR, and that's really the reason it made it on this list. The transfer is near pristine from just going back to the original negative, and whatever Sony does with their stuff, I hope Sony Pictures is around for the long haul when it comes, and whoever does their restoration work and their transfers, I hope they're along for the long haul, because they're so good. They do such a great job. This, Paprika, of course, there's other 4Ks that have come out, like Glory, which was previously released. Like, Sony does such a good job, and they're constantly surprising me with new titles. And Les Femmes Nikita is not one that I would have expected to get a 4K release. It's a French movie. It probably is not the most mainstream thing in terms of sales, but I love that Sony does this and goes deep into their catalog. And it's another really great high-intensity thriller that just feels slept on. 1990, it's 35 years next year that this film's been out, and honestly, I think this was the first I'd heard of it, is when the Steelbook was released, and it reminded me of, clearly this inspired a lot of other films throughout the 90s. This kicking off at the beginning of the 90s. There's a lot of other 90s thrillers and high-intensity action movies that definitely took from Les Femmes Nikita, and I think it's a great film that you should check out. And if you're going to watch it, why not watch it on 4K? And finally, to round out my list, this came out on June 18th, so it just snuck in before July 1st, but that's Chinatown from Paramount Presents. Chinatown is a movie I had not watched, and I know that people might think that's crazy, but I had never seen the movie before. It just was a blind spot. I had it. It was sitting in my Blu-ray collection. I actually had a Steelbook version of it, so I had the disc to do head-to-head comparisons. But I'd never seen the movie, and I don't know why. Just a blind spot. Watching it on 4K, though, was really great. And I'm glad that was the first time that I watched it, because the experience was so good. And I know there was a lot of controversy about Paramount Presents and their Once Upon a Time in the West release, but there's no controversy about Chinatown on 4K. It's a great release with incredible video. It's got Dolby Vision. It's got really clear audio, especially for a film from the 70s. I find a lot of times the audio in those films, I just watched Don't Look Now the other day, and the audio on that is really, it can be hard to make out. Just sound technology wasn't there, but Chinatown is just so beautifully put together. It sounds great. It looks great. It's a great movie, and the package from Paramount Presents is also really nice. It's got some legacy features, but the coolest thing is that it includes the two Jakes on Blu-ray. So you get the sequel just basically as a throw-in. They don't even really advertise it. It's Chinatown on 4K, but you get an entirely second disc, another movie on Blu-ray. So I'd highly recommend it. For some reason right now, it seems like it's gone out of print, or it's very hard to get. I know the Paramount Presents titles are limited, although they don't put a specific number on it. So it may have just sold that well that they ran out, and they're hopefully printing more potentially, or maybe there'll be a standard edition down the line. But if you have Chinatown, you haven't watched it on 4K, watch it. It's a great film. It's a great transfer. It's a must-own disc, and hopefully more copies come back so others can get it, because I think it's one that deserves a spot in everybody's collection. So that's my list for the year so far, 2024. It's middle of July right now. There have been some great releases in July, like Twisters is one that I definitely would put on a list. Civil War could make an end of the year list. So at the end of the year, you might see some stuff come off. You might see some stuff stay on. But this is a pretty solid, kind of eclectic. I tried to pull from different genres, different labels, tried to put together a really solid list that I felt good about for the top 10 of the year so far. And so if you're a collector, home theater enthusiast, I hope this helps. Maybe you found a new title here. Maybe you own all 10 of these and you're as insane as I am with collecting movies. But if you didn't, I'll leave all the links down in the description. You can pick those up. That helps support my channel when you purchase through those links. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you're subscribed here for all the latest. Also, follow me on social media. Those links are in the QR code right here. You can scan that, or as always in the video description. But other than that, it's been a great year for 4K. This was literally a really hard list to make because there are so many other films I could put on here, so many boutique labels as well. It's hard to keep up these days with so much great 4K content coming our way. So stay tuned for the rest of 2024. I'll be at the end of the year with a new list as well for year end. And of course, making plenty of content along the way. So thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you soon.